Hello you lot, this is KeefCooks, I'm Keef, and today I'm going to do something that's quite traditional at Christmas time in Yorkshire. I'm going to make a stand pie. And most of you won't have a clue what a stand pie is, so I will explain. But it's a pork pie, a big pork pie made for sharing, and it's raised around a former or a biscuit tin. Similar to the ones they make down in Melton Mowbray, but better. I don't know why they're better, maybe because they're Yorkshire. Flag of Yorkshire. So to emphasise its Yorkshireness, I'm going to try and emboss the Yorkshire rose onto my pie lid. So it could be gorgeous, could be rubbish. This is actually the second time I'm doing this. I tried it a couple of weeks ago. Tasted fantastic, but the definition of the rose on the lid wasn't great, and I'll explain more about that later. If you enjoy this video, give it a like, share it, and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. 80% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribers. I don't know what that means, but if you actually like them, please subscribe, hit the bell icon beside it so that you get notifications when there's a new video. And yeah, stuff like that. Let's get on with it. Yorkshire stand pie, here we come. Oh, and it's called a stand pie because originally it would have been called a standing pie, and that stand is just an abbreviation. There you go. First thing to do is make the pastry, and this is the absolute classic hot water pastry, which is used for all pork pies generally. And I've never seen hot water pastry on sale in shops, but don't worry, it is the easiest pastry ever, it really is, I kid you not. So what you'll need is 350 grams of plain all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of salt, 120 grams of lard or shortening or butter or mixture or whatever, and 150 ml of water. So first thing we need to do is pop the water into a saucepan and the chunks of lard, and we'll put these on the hob to heat the water and melt the lard. You don't want the water to boil. So the fat's all melted into the water. I'll just add my teaspoon of salt to the flour, stir that in, and then stir in half of the liquid. We do it in two stages, it just makes it easier. I thought I'd this is the hot water pastry I've always made, but with the version that I made a couple of weeks ago, I thought I'd try and be a bit adventurous, because I've seen other recipes where they use half and half lard and butter, and also add one egg. And so I tried that, and I couldn't actually tell any difference. So just to cut down on the number of ingredients, I'll stick with what I've always done. So there it is, nice smooth ball of dough that cleans out the bowl. Now it needs to be tightly wrapped and left somewhere to cool. So it's become a bit of a joke with me, I think, that I tried to ban cling film from the kitchen, because of environmental considerations. There are some jobs that only cling film can do, and tightly wrapping a bit of pastry while it rests is one of them, so that's what I'll do. Alright, we'll put the filling together. So we need pork, that's 1 kilo, a little bit over 1 kilo of pork shoulder, and you'll need seasoning, and this is what I made up for the last one. We'll use 11 grams for our 1 kilo, and that is made up of, I'll just read it, 6 parts or 6 teaspoons white pepper, 4 of salt, 1 of sage, a half of mace. Okay, and then optionally, totally optionally, you can add 5 grams per kilo of this Instacure Prague powder #1 sodium nitrate. Lovely stuff that will keep the meat pink. If you don't add that, it'll be perfectly fine, but the meat will be grey. So what I'm going to do is chop this into very finely bits, very fine chunks. I could whack it through the mincer, but traditionally it's not minced. It's cut by hand like this. But also in the past I've used belly pork or pork chops or a mixture to do pork pie filling. But yeah, shoulder is what you're supposed to use. And keep some fat in as well, because fat is flavour. but you do want to lose the rind because that's just going to be nasty. So chop into bits about 5 millimeters, about 1/4 of an inch. Right, that was incredibly long, hard and tedious work. So, you know, I really don't know if it's worth the effort. And the last one I did, half it was minced and I chopped the other half by hand. This is my seasoning mix from last time. So I want 11 grams of this. 10. 11 and that tiddly bit left over. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it in there. And also the Prague powder, we need 5 grams. Put the lid on and mixy and sprinkly. Right, I've just weighed that. It actually weighs 825 grams. And I really do need this to be full to the top. So I think, well, we're leaving it till tomorrow anyway, and I will go to the butcher's and get a couple of pig's trotters and some belly pork to bulk this up, or maybe some pork chops. Wrapped in film in the fridge. Now we'll build the raised case. Okay, before you start thinking about making your pastry case, you need something to form it around. So I've got this biscuit tin, which it's about 14 centimetres across, that's 5.5 inches, and it's 9 centimetres tall, which is 3.5 inches. So first thing I'm going to do is make the lid. Now, I mentioned earlier, I want to do the Yorkshire rose embossed in it, and so the first time I did it I used this template basically, which I drew in Coral Draw and printed and cut around, and it looked, you know, pretty decent before I baked it. Once I had baked it, it lost definition because the edges weren't very sharp. It just disappeared when it was baked, which was, you know, a bit tragic. Anyway, so to make it quicker, easier and all round more wonderful, 3D printed a stamp, okay, with the Yorkshire rose in. And I'll put these files somewhere and I'll tell you where they are in the description below. Right, pastry. Not quite pastry yet. I need to just lubricate the mould so that I'll be able to get it off without, you know, without the pastry sticking in, because I hate it when that happens. So some vegetable oil. Make sure it goes down into the canyons. Now we'll take about 1/3 of the dough. And roll it a bit to loosen it up. And I'll chuck some flour on the mould. And we'll just roll that in across. And then that should release. Well, that looks a lot sharper than the first effort that I made. Okay, there's our lid. Very, very nice definition on the raised bits. So now what I'm going to do is complete experiment. I'm going to glaze the lower bits with just egg yolk. Then we'll stick it in the fridge overnight to set. And tomorrow when we're ready to bake, I'll egg wash the raised bits. So we'll get a sort of colour contrast, and yeah, should all be fab. We'll see. Alright, there we go. I'm pleased with that. So we'll work on that a bit more tomorrow, but now I need to do the bit I've been avoiding all day, which is to raise the actual case around the tin. Right, before I attempt to raise the dough up the side of this tin, I'm going to make it non-stick, because the benefit of having done this a couple of weeks ago, it's one of the hardest things to do, well, the hardest thing to do was to get the pastry off this former once I'd put it on. And in the end, I damaged the shell, so there were holes around the bottom, which meant, you know, it was a fail because all the juice came out, and I couldn't put jelly in because it came out. And, you know, it was a disaster. So what I'm doing is I'm lining it with greaseproof paper. Press it out a little bit wider. And then start raising the dough up the side. Okay, we have something resembling a pie casing. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't easy, and it still might not work, but I'm going to put this in the fridge. So, see you tomorrow. Okay, alright, next day. So here's my pie case, nicely, well, firm, and here's my lump of meat, which, as you can see, and as I expected, is too small. So I've been to the butcher's, actual butcher's, I'll explain why later, and I got me some pork mince. So I'm going to work that in with some extra seasoning so that we get enough filling to completely fill it. Alright, so we've got meat all the way up to the top now, and I'm just going to weigh that so we know. For future reference, that is just short of 1200 grams. So there we go. Right, next thing, get all the things ready and assemble it. Right, the dreaded attempted release. It should be, with all this greaseproof paper, it should be an absolute doddle. And that was me being an idiot again, because I'd completely forgotten why I'd wrapped the tin in the greaseproof paper. It's so that I can do that, okay? And then I can do this, and it's a miracle. I'm too clever for my own good sometimes. Right, before that gets a bit wiggly, I'm going to pop it on this bit of greaseproof paper in a little roasting dish. I'm also going to make a snake of pastry and just put it around the edge of the bottom where it joins with the vertical wall, because that's looking a bit thin where it's been squashed by the rim of the biscuit tin. Now I'm giving the rim at the top a good old wetting, and we'll just plop the filling in. Yes! Actually, there might be a teeny bit too much, but never mind. Okay, here's the lid. There's our wonderful Yorkshire Rose lid, which is a little bit too small. Actually, I am going to remove a bit of filling because we need some wiggle room here, people. Okay, I'm extending the rim a bit with some spare pastry. And now we can pop it on there and press the edge, press the top and the edge together, and then we'll do some nice crimping, which will kind of disguise where we made a bit of a mess. Okay, crimping, I'm just going to do it with a fork, and I'm going to pop this in the fridge for an hour to firm up, and then we'll finish glazing it and we'll bake it. Right, now we need the oven on to preheat to 180 Celsius for a fan oven, convection oven. That's 200 for a conventional one, and that's gas mark 6. Now to finish glazing the pie, you remember I did the low lights in just egg yolk, and now I'll do the raised areas in, this is egg wash, this is a whole egg with milk whizzed into it as well. So there should be a bit of a colour contrast between the two different kinds of glaze. Then we use the big pastry brush to do the edge up to the border of the rose, if you like, and also we paint the sides. Okay, so this goes in the oven at the high temperature for 30 minutes. And everything crossed that, you know, the sides don't collapse or anything, or yeah. If I seem a bit nervous about this, it's because I've never managed to do a perfect raised pie, despite quite a number of efforts. It's still an experiment. While the pie's baking, we can get on with the last job, which is to make some jellied stock. Now, in all the previous pork pie videos that I've done, I've either made the stock from agar-agar or gelatin, powdered gelatin or leaf gelatin. And although if I can get my hands on a pig's trotter, as it were, well, I have, I will use that, but I've never actually used it in a video, and I have been slagged off mightily by a few people for not being traditional. It makes no difference whatsoever. So making the stock is real simple. Just pop a trotter in a potter. I'm just doing a little one. I don't want a vast amount of stock because we're just doing one pie. An onion chopped into, well, chunks. Leave the skin on, gives it a little bit of colour. 2 or 3 bay leaves. A teaspoon of salt. A teaspoon of white pepper. And then add enough water to cover everything. Pop it on the stove and bring it to the boil. When it's boiling, turn it down to a simmer and put the lid on and just let it simmer away for an hour or two. Okay, 30 minutes is up. Let's see what we've got. We've got a weird thing. There's a kind of spreading going on down the bottom that you probably can't see. Right, I've got to turn the oven down to 140 Celsius for a fan oven, and that's 160 conventional, and that's gas 3. And then we'll put this back in for 45 minutes. Right, time's up again, so let's get the pie out. Oh yeah. I can't see any leakage at all down there, which is great news. And I'm just going to take the temperature in the centre. It should be at least 74 degrees Celsius. And it's just hovering around 60. So I'm going to put this back in the oven for another half hour actually, and I'll put it in at 160, 180. Okay, time's up again, so let's take it out again. Okay, 84. 85. Okay, definitely cooked. So we'll let them cool down. Jelly stock's not ready, not quite ready yet, but it will be soon, and that's okay. We don't want to put it in while that's as hot as it is, really. Now I'm going to try and get the pie out of the tin without wrecking it, and pop it onto the cooling rack. And when that's squeezed a little bit, I've got a huge aroma of pork pie. Oh yeah. Okay, great stuff. A little bit wobbly, but you know, when that's cut open, nobody will know, and it's going to taste amazing. Okay, now I'm going to finish off the jelly stock. So I've got a bowl, I've got a fine colander sieve, and I've got some muslin cloth. Okay, so here's the stock. I did add more water, and so I'm not sure if this is quite ready. It might need to be reduced more. We'll just let that drip. But I just want to test if this will set. So I'll just put a bit in the little jug, measuring jug, measuring glass, and pop that in the freezer for a few minutes and see what happens. Okay, jelly time. I'm not sure if this jelly is ready for this jelly, if you know what I mean. It'll be wonderful, probably. So we funnel in the big hole and we'll just see. So this is me standing by with the flavour injector, because never before in my entire life have I managed to make a pork pie where the jelly would go in through the hole in the top. Really, I kid you not, I've always had to squeak it in with a syringe. And it's actually useful if you've got a little hole in the top, so that as the liquid is going in, the air has a way to get out. Okay, we have a pie, and I'm going to cut it open. Are you ready? Here we go. Oh yeah, I reckon that's pretty impressive. And we've got jelly in up to about halfway up, so that's great, because I was worried that I'd lost it all, but yeah. Hey, okay, right. Shortly, we'll do a taste test. And now, it's taste test time. Yay, it's with Mrs. KeefCooks and her antlers.
Hello!
Okay.
Oh, look at that, it's beautiful.
Oh, so stand by your man.
Stand by Keef. Stand by Keef. This is great. This is actually my lunch break. We're doing taste test of a lunch break. Way to go. Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah.
A little plate to put it on.
Thank you, darling.
I know. Alright, I've already had a bit. It's brilliant. Try. Traditionally, it would be served with piccalilli, which is sort of pickled cauliflower.
I used to really like piccalilli. I don't know, I seem to have gone off pickles. So I usually like a milder mustard than you do, but this works well with this.
Yeah, so I think at some point I might have a go at making my own. But this is not that point.
Yeah. Well, I know this works for me because with the first one that you made, where you couldn't put the jelly in it, you know, we still had an entire stand pie in the fridge. So I've been having pork pie each day and haven't got bored at all.
And in fact, I almost had none of it, because really for me the jelly is, it's not the icing on the cake, it's the cake. It's, if you haven't got jelly in your pork pie, you haven't got a pork pie, as far as I'm concerned.
It's definitely better with jelly, but I just love the pastry. You know, the way the meat juices soak in. So, oh yeah.
It's good, isn't it? Right. Okay. Thank you for watching, and
Happy Christmas.
See you next time.
Oh yeah, we've got one more before Christmas, haven't
One
we?
more, and I don't know what it'll be yet, but I'm sure it'll be exciting. All right.